Salutations and welcome to our very first online edition of AP Psychology. Hiya, how are you all? So that was, by the way, was the chicken dance. That is the official theme song of AP Psychology. Um, Greetings. Long time no see. It's been almost a full week. I wanted to check in and see how you all were, even though you're not really going to be able to tell me anything because yeah, obviously. Um, but I want to check in, see how the massive amount of work I gave you is going, and to update you on a few different things, and to go over some social psychology stuff. So strap on in. I'm ready for the occasion. As you can see, I'm wearing my I Get Psyched for Psychology t-shirt. But yeah, here we are. Today we're not going to do anything too heavy. My main thing that I want to do is go through the unit. It says unit 14, but in this version of the course it's unit 9. But the unit 9 vocabulary, and as we go through, I'll tell you a bit about the terms. And the other thing that's going to happen after this video is I'm going to upload some videos to Google Classroom for you all to watch, because the thing about social psychology is there are a lot of fun videos that go along with the terms. And obviously I wish that we could watch those together in class, but the circumstances are as they are. But first, on another note, I just want to say I hope that all of you are doing well. Obviously, this is a very weird time. It's a very uncertain time. And I just hope that whatever you're doing, work aside, that you're taking care of yourself, that you all and your families are safe, and hopefully this helps get your mind off of the weirdness of the world for the time being. I don't know when we're going to be back in school. I truly don't. Technically, it's still March 30th, but if we're back in school on March 30th, I would be shocked. Tomorrow there should be an update. I'm filming this on Thursday, March 19th. On Friday, College Board is supposed to be giving us some sort of update about the AP exams. They've thrown the idea out there of taking exams online. They've thrown the idea out there of postponing exams. They've also, it's possible the exam stays on the day that it is. No one really knows where we're at right now, but they're supposed to be providing some sort of update on Friday the 20th. So we'll see what that update is tomorrow. But once again, right now, regardless of AP exam, regardless of college credit, regardless of the madness of the world, I think it would just be fun to learn some social psychology. Because in the great words of my friend here, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. I told you to prepare for the jokes, so Nemo may be back. So hopefully you have this in front of you. Let's start going through it. So number 1, adjusting our behavior or thinking to coincide with a group standard. If you said groupthink, you are correct. Yeah, groupthink, essentially the idea is when you're with a group, you're more likely to go along with the group, and for those group ideas to get more extreme, right? Think about it. If you're in a group of all people who believe one thing, you're more likely to build each other up and go more in that direction of that one thing, versus if you were in a group where you knew people differed from you, and you had to deal with those different opinions, right? This is why, especially when we think about politics, right? We have two political parties that are both on extremes, and when they're together, they may go farther to that extreme than if they're in a situation where there are both parties included. So that's groupthink. Number 2, occurs when interested people focus on the arguments and respond with favorable thoughts. Any guesses? Not quite. The correct answer here is central root of persuasion. Now, I want to cover central root of persuasion with its alternate, which would be number 11. So look at number 11. Number 11 is occurs when people are influenced by incidental cues such as a speaker's attractiveness, and that is peripheral root of persuasion. So the two differences here between these two things. Imagine a commercial, right? If the commercial is about how great um, a shoe, like how comfortable a shoe is, right? Or how tasty a meal is from a restaurant, right? Then the purpose of the commercial is focusing on the product, right? So that's central root of persuasion. It's trying to persuade you using the item of focus, and it wants to convince you that that item of focus is good, so therefore you buy it. Peripheral root of persuasion is when you see like celebrities and stuff endorse products, right? And so if you saw your favorite AP psychology teachers telling you that Bounty is the best paper towel in the world, and you bought Bounty paper towels for the sake of, well, Mr. Quinn said they were the best, so let me buy them. And instead of the actual quality of the paper towel, if you're buying it for a reason other than the actual like product itself, that is peripheral root of persuasion. So the example that it gives in this thing about a speaker's attractiveness, that's where you see certain commercials. The focus isn't on the product itself. The focus is on the attractiveness of the person in the commercial or the celebrity that's endorsing it. So that's the difference between central root of persuasion and peripheral root of persuasion. We'll come back to those at some point. Number 3, the tendency for people to believe that the world is just and that people therefore get what they deserve. Get what they deserve and deserve? That doesn't make sense. Anywho, the tendency for people to believe that the world is just is the just world phenomena. It's essentially just like this idea in psychology that people believe that people get, right, you get what you put out, right? And if you believe the world is just, then you believe good people will in the end reap good benefits, while people who wrong the system will get what they deserve, right? So that's sort of the just world phenomena. Number 5, number 4, a prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true due to positive feedback between belief and behavior. All of you should know this one because I have hammered this one home since September. It is the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say something is going to be, if you keep on saying something, then that something is going to happen, right? If you say you have no chance to do well on something, then whether directly or indirectly you influence it, the self-fulfilling prophecy says that thing will come true. So yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy. And number 5, the tendency for observers when analyzing others' behavior to underestimate the impact of the situation and to overestimate the impact of personal disposition. This is fundamental attribution error. So what this means would be if I said, let's say, if I did extremely well in a basketball game. Okay, you all saw at the student versus staff game. I'm an all-star. If I did really well at the student versus staff basketball game, I could say it's because of my skills, right? However, the reality of the situation could be our team had a player advantage. It could be other people were going easy on me. It could be I got on the court with 5 minutes left when everyone else had already been playing an hour, so therefore I had a bunch of energy, right? There are situational factors that could have influenced why something happened. But fundamental attribution error, you ignore those things and you say, this happened because of me. But it can also work on the flip side too, right? It can be a negative thing as well. And so if you say, oh, like I suck because I did poorly on this test, but you ignore the fact that, the room was super, super hot, or the night before you got no sleep because there there were loud noises happening, right? Or something, you had a fight with a friend, right? The issue is not you don't know what you're talking about. The issue is something else, but you say I didn't do well because I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm dumb, right? That would be fundamental attribution error. You're putting too much on yourself and not looking at the situational factors affecting things. Does that make sense? Okay. I thought we'd take a brief pause here, and I'd give you a quick joke. So, keeping tropical fish at home can have a calming effect on the brain due to all the endorphins. Get it? Endorphins. Yeah, yeah. See, the fins, they're indoors. Endorphins bring you down. If you didn't miss my class already, I hope you do now. There'll be more jokes where that came from. All right, number 6, the theory we act to reduce the discomfort we feel between two of our thoughts are inconsistent. For example, when we become aware that our attitudes and our actions clash, we can reduce the resulting dissonance by changing our attitudes, and this is cognitive dissonance. We've talked about cognitive dissonance before, right? It's when what you think and what you do don't line up, and there's a cognitive dissonance. There's a difference between what you believe and what happens in reality, right? And so there's a cognitive dissonance between those two things. And so typically when you realize there's cognitive dissonance, you cognitively or behaviorally adjust in order to resolve that cognitive dissonance. So typically when we talk about cognitive dissonance, we talk about a difference that needs to be resolved. Once again, we'll give more examples of that later. Number 7, bias, where people tend to overestimate the extent to which their own opinions, beliefs, preferences, values, and habits are normal and typical to those of others. That is the false consensus effect. Number 8, improved performance on simple or well-learned tasks in the presence of others. That is social facilitation. Bonus point, what is the opposite of social facilitation? No one? Okay. The opposite of social facilitation is social inhibition. Okay, so social facilitation, you do better because of people being around you. Social inhibition, you do worse when people are around, right? In both, people are around. It's just a difference of social facilitation, you do better in the presence of other people. Social inhibition, you do worse in the presence of other people. Number 9, the mode of thinking that occurs when the desire for harmony in a decision-making group overrides the realistic appraisal of alternatives. Conformity. You don't look at alternatives because the norm of the group overrides those potential alternatives, right? Number 10, the psychologist who tests obedience to authority would be Stanley Milgram. Okay, I'm going to put up a video of Stanley Milgram's experiment. It is one of the most famous psychological experiments. We're not going to talk about it now. We're going to talk about it in the next video after you all watch that clip. But keep an eye out for Stanley Milgram's short clip about his experiment, because it is one of the most fascinating in psychological studies. Number 11 we already did. Number 12, phenomena in which individuals do not offer any means to help a victim when other people are present. This is the bystander effect. The bystander effect, another thing, I'm going to post some videos about the bystander effect, and then we'll talk more about it afterwards, okay? Number 13, loss of self-awareness in groups is de-individualization. De-individualization is essentially just the idea that you're losing your own identity in sort of like melding with the group. So when you're with a group of people, you act less like yourself and you conform more to those group norms, right? So hopefully you're seeing the way that some of these terms work together, right? Groupthink, conformity, de-individualization, right? These things work together in social psychology. All right, let's flip to the back page. But before we do that, let me share with you our second joke. Let me just pull it up here. So all of us, hopefully, are practicing social distancing in this global pandemic, unlike anything we've ever seen before. So here is the social distancing edition of Where's Waldo? Right? Can you see that? No. Yeah, you can't really see that well. But essentially, all the people are spread out, and you can't actually see them because they're spread out. They're socially distancing. Google it on your own. Here, I'll give you another joke because that one didn't quite work. All right, so in this one, this is one I'm quite proud of. You can see the amount that have built up because I don't have the daily PowerPoints. So here's a dog. He's herding up sheep, okay? He says, there's all 40 sheep. There's all 40 sheep. And then the human goes, what? We should only have 37. And the dog goes, I know. I rounded up. I'm just going to assume that at home you're laughing. That's my hope. Get it? Because the dog is rounding up the sheep. So 40, 37, rounding up, math. Yeah. All right, number 14. The psychologist who studied willingness to conform is Ash. The Ash line experiment is another, it's not as influential as some of the other experiments, but it is a fun one, and I wish that we were in class for it because I always have fun doing the Ash line experiment with students. But once again, take a look for a video that I'm going to post that will talk more about the Ash line experiment. Number 15, compliance with an order, request, or law, or submission to another's authority is obedience. We've talked about obedience before, right? When we talk about Kohlberg and the levels of moral reasoning, when we talk about operant conditioning, rewards and punishment, right? So we've talked about obedience in other ways. In this unit, through the social psych experiments that you need to know, we talk more about obedience. And so once again, we'll talk more about that with Stanley Milgram and with another one that we'll talk about in a moment. Number 16, the tendency for people in a group to exert less effort when pulling their efforts towards attaining a common goal than when individually accountable is social loafing. Be honest, I can't see you on the other end of the screen. Have you ever been in a group project and done less work because there were other people who could also do it? I can't see you and whether you're admitting up to this, but I would assume that in some form or fashion, at some point in our lives, whether it be a group project, whether it be any situation in which, where there's a group, we may not work as hard as when we know the pressure and the accountability is on us. And so all of us in one way or another are social loafs. Some of us loaf more than others, but social loafing, surprising, but is an actual psychological term. Next one, number 17, psychologists that studied the psychological effects of being a prisoner or guard and created the Stanford Prison Study. That is Philip Zimbardo. Philip Zimbardo is another one of the must-know names in psychology. I'm going to post something about Zimbardo, and you can watch that video. The other thing, and this is okay if you can't watch this absolutely isn't required, but if you have Netflix, there's also a graphic but good documentary / It's something on the Stanford Prison Project, the Stanford Prison Experiment, which is the basis of Philip Zimbardo. So if nothing else, watch the video on that I put up from YouTube on Google Classroom. If you have some time in this period of social isolation, and you have access to Netflix, that could be a good way to spend a couple hours. Next one, 18. But also be warned that it is a little graphic. And we'll talk more about the Zimbardo experiment next time in our next video. Stay tuned. Number 18, evaluation of other cultures according to preconceptions originating in the standards and customs of our own. This is ethnocentrism, okay? This goes along with other things that we've also discussed in relationship, right? When we talk about how was Hitler able to carry out the Holocaust, right? How have mass atrocities been able to happen? How did Europe subjugate most of the world? This is all ethnocentrism. This is all these preconceived notions that feed into this idea that some cultures are superior and that other cultures are subordinate. And so we'll talk more about ethnocentrism. There's also a video that I'm going to share called The Wave. It's actually not a video, it's a full movie. You're not required to watch it, but once again, I think it's a great film. It is old, so it's a little cheesy, but it's essentially a true story based off of this history teacher who his students could not understand how Hitler was able to carry out the Holocaust. And so what this history teacher does is he creates this group at the school called The Wave. And The Wave essentially becomes a gang. And everyone gets so into the mentality of The Wave that it's a gang that violently and psychologically intimidates the rest of the school. And the teacher gets so caught up in this like social experiment that he's doing that he actually begins to think he's the leader of this thing, right? He starts acting differently towards the other teachers, towards his wife, towards students at the school who aren't part of the Wave. It gets really intense, and this is a true story that it actually got so bad that the teacher got fired. The teacher got sued. It was interestingly enough, in an effort to try and prove how people can get brainwashed and how people can get caught up in groupthink and obedience to authority and lose their individuality. That's what happened. Right? Both from the students who were following this teacher, but then also for the teacher himself who got so caught up in his role of power. If you have some time, it really is a great documentary to watch. Once again, I wish that we had a chance to watch it together in class. However, unfortunately, we don't. So definitely recommend watching that, and I will post it to Google Classroom. Number 19, preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience is an attitude. The next one, a person asks for a large request that the responder will most likely turn down in order to get a smaller request. This would be one of those moments in class where I'd ask you, does anyone have an example of door in the face approach? Essentially, door in the face approach would be me asking, if I was a student and I asked, and okay, there we go. If I was a student and we had a test next week and a student went, hey, Mr. Quinn, can you cancel the test? Right? That's a big ask. And what's the likelihood of me canceling the test altogether? Not going to happen, right? You know you're going to get told no. However, after I say no to that big request, you go, oh, well, okay, can we at least push it back a day or two? so that we have more time to study? Can we push it from Friday to Monday? And then I'm like, okay, I guess. Does that make sense? You asked for something bigger in order to get something smaller. So you ask for something bigger that you know you're going to get told no to, so that you get told yes to something smaller. Think about ways in which you may get that or you may sometimes do that in your own life, or a time that you've seen that. Okay, I'll be asking you for an example in a future activity, but think on that on your own. We'll get to the opposite of that in a few moments. Next one, 21. A person is less likely to take responsibility for actions or inaction when others are present. This is diffusion of responsibility. Diffusion of responsibility goes hand in hand with bystander effect. Once again, we'll talk more about those after you watch the videos that I'm going to post. 22. Feelings often influenced by our beliefs that predispose us to respond in a particular way to objects, people, and events is prejudice. Prejudice goes hand in hand with ethnocentrism, right? Also similar to attitudes but different. We'll talk more about that after some of you watch The Wave. Number 23, a psychological phenomena by which people tend to develop a preference for things merely because they are familiar with them is the mere exposure effect. Why do companies spend millions of dollars on Super Bowl ads? The answer is because if you see a Super Bowl ad for Snickers, let's say, and then you're at the store, you're in line at the store ready to check out, and you see a Snickers, right? And you're like, and then you grab a Snickers instead of grabbing another candy bar. That's because even if you're not cognitively aware of it, there's something in your mind because you saw that advertisement last week that's like, Snickers. Snickers, right? It is psychologically proven that the mere exposure to something can influence us choosing a like thing to that. We tend to choose things that we are familiar with, hence mere exposure effect. Think of more examples of those. I will ask you for more later. Number 24, expectation that people will respond favorably to each other by returning benefits for benefits and responding with either indifference or hostility to harms, norms of reciprocity. Hopefully, you have been told at some point, treat others the way you would like to be treated. The psychological term for that is norms of reciprocity. And the last one, the tendency for people to first agree to a small request and comply later with a larger request. So this is the opposite of door in the face, right? Door in the face, you ask for something big, you get told no, you have the door slammed in your face, and then you ask for something smaller, and you're more likely to get that smaller thing, right? Foot in the door is the opposite. Foot in the door, you ask for something small and you get told yes to that, and then you gradually build up to that bigger thing you want to ask. This is something that I worked a lot with these two things. I've told you previously that I worked in fundraising while in college. And on the phone with alumni, we would start with an ask one. And the ask one would always be like 2 or 3 times what the alumni gave previously, right? So if the alumni previously gave $25, our first ask, the first thing I'd ask them to donate was $100. Would you be willing to donate $100 to Bucknell today? And typically they would go, no, right? Then they would be more likely when I brought it down and I was like, how would you feel about 50 today, right? Or how would you feel about 40? They would be more likely to say yes, right? Foot in door is different. Foot in door is what we do to young alumni, like the first year they graduate, is we go, hey, would you be willing to give $10 to Bucknell University, right? You get them to agree to $10, and then the next year, you know what you do? You ask them for 30, right? So you get your foot in the door, right? You stick that foot in the door, now you're in, and then you ask for something bigger later on, right? So you build up your asks. So when we think about advertising, think about how you see door in the face approaches, how you see foot in the door approaches. The extra credit other questions. Number 26 is fetal alcohol syndrome, a review from our development unit. Number 27, the father of American psychology, is William James. Number 28, the superego is Freud's representation and personality for judgment. Number 29 is classical conditioning, association between multiple stimuli. And the last one, false sensory experiences, are hallucinations. All right? So be on the lookout for videos. I'm going to post to Google Classroom momentarily. Watch them. I'll be talking about them in our next video. Also in our next video, I think you'll have a better time completing some notes, whether you choose to do this packet or whether you choose to do notes on your own. But using those videos, it'll help you cover them. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with a few thoughts. First, this is something that I have been really wrecking my brain on for the past week after I saw this. So, is the Kool-Aid Man the jar or the liquid? Mind blown, okay? Respond in the comments. Jar or liquid? Which is the Kool-Aid Man? Help me figure it out, because I don't know. And also, once again, bringing it back to the beginning. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I don't know when we're going to be in class together again. I don't know if we're going to be in class together again. I don't know what the AP exam looks like. I don't know whether we take it at school. I don't know whether we take it in May. I don't know whether you take it at home. I don't know. I truly do not know any of these things. I also don't know how long any of this is going to last when we don't think about school. This is, as I told you the day before we left, this is uncharted territory that all of us are figuring out as we go. And so my hope in this video and my hope in giving you these assignments, do them, obviously, but make sure you're taking care of yourself. That's the number one thing. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. That's important. I also want to share that I miss all of you. As much as it is kind of nice to be getting a break, I miss coming to school each day. And the longer this goes, the more I'm going to miss it. And so be well, stay safe, keep yourself safe, take care of yourself, and remember, in the almighty words of Nemo and his lucky fin, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, 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 swimming. Bye, everyone. Have a great night.